He was at home, in the one place meant to bring peace, when everything was ripped away in flames. Smoke swallowed the night sky, neighbors screamed, and within moments, the walls he had built to shelter his family were gone. The fire wasn't an accident. It wasn't bad luck. Someone had set it, and the cruel truth was more shocking than anyone could have imagined. This wasn't just the loss of a home. It was a declaration, a message written in smoke and ash. And when the person responsible finally stepped into a courtroom, Marcus's courtroom, the story took a turn no one expected. What happened that night wasn't just about one man. It was about a reality too many live every single day. The question is, how did he survive it? And what did it reveal about the world we live in? Marcus was an ordinary man, a father, a husband, a worker who kept his head down and lived a quiet life. His days began before sunrise, filled with hard work, and the kind of effort only those determined to build something lasting could understand. To him, home wasn't just a house. It was a promise to his children, a foundation for a better future. His neighborhood wasn't perfect, but it was familiar. He mowed his lawn every Saturday, greeted neighbors with a polite nod, and carried himself with dignity. For Marcus, life wasn't about grandeur, it was about stability. But not everyone saw him that way. Across the street lived Karen, a woman whose eyes lingered a little too long, whose complaints seemed too specific, too personal. At first it was whispers, side comments about noise that didn't exist, questions about whether his family fit in with the community. Subtle, easy to dismiss. But beneath those small moments lived a tension that grew heavier with time, the kind that doesn't just fade away. Marcus sensed it, but pushed forward, unaware of how quickly that tension would ignite into something far more destructive. The signs began small. A letter from the Homeowners Association questioned his lawn, though it looked no different from anyone else's. A warning about trash bins left out a few minutes late, though others did the same without issue. It was always Marcus, always his family, singled out. Then came the stares. When Marcus left for work, Karen would be there, standing on her porch, arms crossed, eyes narrowed, as though his existence itself was an offense. He ignored it at first, telling himself it wasn't worth the energy. But the complaints escalated, and soon rumors spread. People whispered about him, about his family. Things he knew weren't true, but that seemed to grow louder with each passing day. And then came the threats, disguised as concerns, words laced with venom, hidden behind polite tones. The pressure built until Marcus couldn't ignore it anymore. Then came the night everything changed. Marcus awoke to the sound of shattering glass, the faint glow of light flickering in the darkness. Within seconds, the glow grew into an inferno. Flames devoured the walls, smoke filled his lungs, and the only thought pounding in his head was his children. He rushed them out, his body burning from the heat, his mind racing with fear. Neighbors stood outside, some in shock, some too afraid to act, and standing at the edge of the crowd was Karen, silent, watching. No alarm in her eyes, no shock, only something colder, something calculated. Marcus would never forget that look. The firefighters arrived, but it was too late. The house was gone, reduced to rubble and ash. His family was alive, but the place they called home had been destroyed, stolen by hatred disguised as neighborly concern. The investigation began, but Marcus already knew. He had seen the eyes of the person responsible. He had seen the silence that spoke louder than words. And when whispers reached him that Karen was involved, that suspicion wasn't paranoia anymore. It was truth. The trial dragged on, but the truth did not disappear. Evidence surfaced. Security footage, neighbors who refused to stay silent, experts who dismantled Karen's lies. Slowly, piece by piece, her carefully constructed facade began to crumble. In the end, the court did not convict Marcus. His name was cleared, his innocence preserved. But the victory felt hollow. The house he had built with his own hands was still nothing but ash. The nights of fear, the scars on his children's hearts, the quiet humiliation of being treated as less than human. Those things could not be erased with a single verdict. Marcus walked out of the courthouse that day, not as a man celebrating justice, but as a man carrying the weight of what it had cost him to get even this far. He had survived, but survival is not the same as living. And as he looked back at the courthouse steps, he realized his story was not an isolated tragedy. It was part of a larger truth, a system where black men and women are too often forced to defend their very right to exist, where lies are given more power than lived reality. His story became a reminder of resilience, yes, but also of the cracks in a world that promises justice but delivers it unequally. For Marcus, the fight was personal. For us, it should be universal. Because his story is not just his. It echoes through neighborhoods, through families, through history itself. And now the question lingers, demanding to be answered. How many more homes must burn? How many more lives must be twisted by lies before we decide that enough is enough? This is not just Marcus's story. It's ours, and it's up to us to decide what happens next.